Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea, talking about some of the biggest news stories surrounding the club this week. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also hit that like button if you're enjoying the content because it helps out the channel as well. Let's start off with Kai Havertz, an update about Kai Havertz potentially becoming a Chelsea player this summer for next season. Spoke about him on Monday's video. Christian Falk, who's a very well respected journalist in Germany, was very much at the forefront of not only, of course, this deal potentially becoming a reality, but also Timo Werner becoming a Chelsea player. And he's tweeted all about Kai Havertz. And this is an update that very relevant to today because Bayer Leverkusen restart their training today. And Christian Falk tweeted on the 22nd that when training starts again at Bayer Leverkusen on Thursday, Havertz wants to talk with his club. His request, the bosses should let him go to Chelsea. So once again, very much in line with what we're hearing. We've heard reports of Petr Cech going over to Germany and completing this deal. It very much feels like personal terms with the player are almost complete, but it's just about that fee now with Bayer Leverkusen and how high or low it's going to be compared to reports we've heard. So I think it's just a matter of patience now. I think it's a matter of when and not if Kai Havertz becomes a Chelsea player. So we're just going to have to wait and see, but still very positive and exciting news for Chelsea fans. But let's move on now to current players in the squad. Kepa Arrizabalaga, of course, had a difficult night once again at Anfield last night in that 5-3 defeat. Got a lot of criticism. And before I get into the story, because the story is about Matt Law and Matt Law talking about Chelsea considering buying a new goalkeeper this summer, as you can see on your screen now. We've heard a lot about this Petr Cech, likely to be heavily involved in drawing up two shortlists, depending on whether or not the club can sell their number one. I've talked in recent weeks about loan moves potentially to Spain. I mean, Chelsea, I think, is very unlikely they're going to be able to actually permanently sell Kepa this summer. But unfortunately, sadly, very sadly, I have to address and confront things we've heard on Twitter and social media since that defeat last night. Apparently, Kepa has received quite a few death threats. It's despicable, it's disgusting, it's small-minded. It is not the actions of a true supporter, not a supporter of Chelsea. It's horrible, and I'm sure you guys watching this will equally condemn this. I hope you do in the comments, because whatever we think, we criticize players, I criticize players, but I always go up to a certain respectable line. I don't abuse players, and I really hate the culture that has festered and grown and at times been allowed to be created, I think, on social media. I think there is a line, of course, going to the extreme of sending someone a death threat is disgusting and despicable and needs to be condemned. But I do think there is a trend, unfortunately, where I see it in the comments of my videos where players are referenced and called parasites. I see stuff like that, and I'm sorry, I will not engage with your argument if you refer to players like that. I can have reasonable debates with people who maybe don't rate a player that I do. That's fine. If you do it in a respectful way, we can have that disagreement, absolutely, and have that debate. It's when it crosses a line, and it's absolutely despicable. I'm pretty sure most Chelsea fans that I interact with, of course, are going to be condemning this. There is no debate here. If you send death threats to your own players, you are not a Chelsea supporter, and this very much, unfortunately, is the next in a line of events we've seen this season. And you could probably track it back, further seasons than that. Tammy Abraham receiving racist abuse after the penalty miss in Istanbul at the start of the season against Liverpool. The abuse I've seen of Mason Mount this season, Jorginho. I'm pretty sure you could pick out a number of players. And it's not just Chelsea supporters who are probably dealing with this and seeing their own players being abused. I think all clubs and all supporters would probably tell stories and find this equally as harmful and as disgusting, because it just happens, unfortunately, a lot on social media. But I think the most we can do is confront it, condemn it, challenge it, and do better in conversation. Be respectful. You can be critical, absolutely. I'm not saying you can't be critical of your players. Watch my videos. I'm constantly like that, but it's a line that gets crossed, unfortunately, too often on social media. But on Kepa, very much feels like Chelsea looking for a new goalkeeper this summer, even if Kepa doesn't leave on loan or leaves permanently, which I think is unlikely. Depending on a replacement, I think when I hear about Petr Cech sort of two lists, I think it very much depends on targets, doesn't it? We've heard the rumours of Oblak, we've heard the rumours of Henderson, Andre Onana. I think that Andre Onana may be on sort of the first list if Kepa was to leave, because that is probably going to be a higher fee. The second list may be looking at more experienced goalkeepers across Europe that Chelsea could bring bring in maybe older goalkeepers as well that could fit in just for a short-term period that Chelsea could rely on, because it's a situation that needs to be rectified along with the defence as well. As we saw last night, just the confidence, unfortunately, of Kepa is so low at this point that, as I said in my rational perspective, I think it is a point of no return, unfortunately, and I think that Frank Lampard will be looking to strengthen that area, and I think the club will, clearly from the reports that Matt Law has continued to say. So those are my thoughts on Kepa's situation. Sadly, of course, confronting those despicable death threats. Please let me know your opinions on that situation as well. Who do you think Chelsea will go for this summer if we are to bring in a new goalkeeper? Please let me know in the comments below. And lastly, a massive target for Chelsea this summer that I've spoken about on Let's Talk Chelsea before, Declan Rice from West Ham, the former Chelsea academy player. Jacob Steinberg for The Guardian has reported that West Ham have ruled out swapping Rice for Chelsea's Barkley and Batshuayi. This report came out and rumours came out this week that Chelsea were looking to potentially do some sort of swap deal with offering Ross Barkley and Michy Batshuayi, with Declan Rice going in the other direction. But Jacob Steinberg ruling that out here, saying that West Ham will turn down any attempt by Chelsea to offer Michy Batshuayi and Ross Barkley as part of a deal for Declan Rice, and are adamant they have no intention of selling the midfielder. Chelsea, who are closing in on a deal to sign the Bayer Leverkusen midfielder Kai Havertz, have explored the possibility of offering Batshuayi and Barkley in exchange for Rice. David Moyes tried to sign Barkley on loan in January and gave the midfielder his debut at Everton, and West Ham missed out on Batshuayi when the striker joined Chelsea in 2016. I've spoken about, Barkley before. I think that Chelsea know they're guaranteed, profit on Ross Barkley if they do sell him, based on, the 50 million fee we got to sign him from Everton in 2018. Michy, I think, is a different situation. I think it's a more tricky situation for Chelsea because of the wages. I've spoken about this on a channel before. I think it was a report from Simon Johnson in The Athletic talking about his wages and considering, Borussia Dortmund potentially wanting to bring him to the club permanently, Crystal Palace, but the fee that Chelsea required to take Batshuayi out of Stamford Bridge was too high for those clubs. And I think Batshuayi is a player a bit like Kepa, maybe a bit like Bakayoko and Drinkwater, will have to be sent out on loan with a view for a permanent deal potentially next year. I just think the current climate of coronavirus pandemic and how that's affecting clubs financially, Chelsea are in a very fortunate situation based on maybe the transfer ban and the finances we have to be able to spend big, but a lot of clubs across Europe can't do that. Batshuayi definitely will be on the move this summer. I'd be stunned if he's still in the first team squad next year. He's just not getting any minutes. He hasn't played any minutes since the restart. It's even a shock now to see him on the bench in Chelsea's matchday squad, and that's how low it is for Batshuayi at the moment. And with Timo Werner coming in, Tammy Abraham, Olivier Giroud, there's no chance of minutes for Batshuayi anymore. But it's finding that willing potential buyer or a club that's going to take him on next season. I think it's going to be the challenge. In terms of Declan Rice, West Ham securing their safety in the Premier League last night after a draw with Manchester United, which doesn't help Chelsea. It did help Chelsea in the sense of, we only need 1 point for Champions League qualification in the season, but it doesn't help Chelsea in trying to potentially get a lower fee for Declan Rice. And they are adamant they are going to sell him. And with them staying in the Premier League the way they have, it's going to be a very difficult deal for Chelsea to get over the line. And I don't think a swap deal is realistic, to be honest. But please let me know your opinions on Declan Rice. Do you think Chelsea will pursue him this summer? What do you think about the futures of both Ross Barkley and Michy Batshuayi at Chelsea? Please let me know in the comments below. But that is it for today's edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.